Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. Look, I'm going to try to whip through these 3 pages?
Yeah.
3 pages worth of top 10. This will be another cold read because, hey, as you folks who were in the Alpha and IT test for the last, 3 hours, know that I've been in there with you doing things. So I haven't had a chance to look at this yet, though I can guess that at least about a few of the items. There'll be a very short Q&A because unfortunately I hurt my back 2 days ago and I want to get home. It's been a long day. All right, so number 1, Siege Scenario. Remember that go big or go home mantra? Not one of my favorites, but it's true. We want to go big. I prefer go BSC. But not a go home because that just brings back memories. We have when we test our work. Well, right now on Hatchery, Ben is testing with that 9 million block building, 700 NPCs, hundreds of trebuchets, magic mortars, archers that are still firing into the ground. But we have a fix for that. That may actually be in the current build now up on Hawking, where we've been running the unstable build test for the last few hours. So this week we focused on building server, building destruction, building simplification. And before anyone asks, wait, you're making the building simpler? No, that should read mesh simplification. But that's okay. These cold readings are so much fun because we get to find out what's written together. Hitching and bugs. And what does that all mean? Mesh simplification, building destruction, building server are all about making it more performant. If you were in the test today or any of the tests this week, what did you see? Well, according to some of our backers, they saw their dreams come true. One of their backers had a slightly more graphic way of saying that, which was great, but I won't repeat it. But yeah, you saw what I said you folks were going to see when we talked about the siege scenario. You saw something that you have been waiting for. You saw that we can, real time, destroy a 9 million block building, have hundreds of NPCs, which are networked, and players, and they can all get along famously and beat the snot out of each other, especially the building. So yeah, all of this is great stuff. This again is what you all have been waiting for far too many years, and I am ecstatic about where we are now. Number 2, work in progress, tech crafting system. So Christina started work on item subpart visuals. Okay, so what does this mean? And this is a bigger one. So we've said from the beginning that the crafting system that was in the game now was only part 1. We said there was going to be more complicated, more interesting, and we'll do a presentation on this as well, just as we're going to do on mages. But the idea is now we have subparts, or will have subparts. And what is a subpart? A subpart, of course, is a part that makes up another part of another item. So, a sword will have multiple subparts. So it's not just crafting a sword, you craft the hilt. You craft the blade. You craft the guard, things like that. And one of the things that came up on the forums, talk about your good timing, somebody asked, hey, is there going to be a dying system in this game? And the answer is, of course there is. We've talked about that from the beginning, and that's something that is important to us. I know it's important to Andrew as well, as is the subpart system. And so I think you folks who are crafters are going to like the system even more, because it gives you what you want to be able to do, which is not only have more added value to the game, but be able to make more choices to give the players options, or the combatants options, to decide exactly what kind of weapon or armor or whatever they want you to make. So number 3, another work in progress tech, improved ability system. So yes, updates to armor penetration, armor class, and resists from Caleb. Number 4, work in progress UI, orders, guilds. AJ's been working on the order UI and has begun hooking it up to the back end. The UI will give players tools that they need to manage their order in the game. I'll take a ham on ride. Anyway, number 5, old Marx Brothers joke. Very old. Older even than me. Work in progress, number 5, tech abilities. So Anthony spent the week working on bug fixes, ability implementations, and client effect matchup issues in the improved ability system. And he started looking at the support class design to determine tech requirements for the support classes. More game. Number 6, another work in progress, tech VFX. A Wile E. Coyote is working on a distortion shader that supports more lighting effects. And by the way, Wiley's awesome. Everyone's awesome, but you know he's one of our younger people and is very, very awesome. That boiled down to adding reflection and shading to the existing distortion field. Now, what does this mean? It means this will allow us to make convincing effects for glass, or a heat haze for Flame Warden's fire, or water for the Wave Weaver spells. Number 7, tech, manual aiming. Our newest engineer, Spidey. It's nice, so nice. We have a Spidey. But we also have a president. We have the hardest working man in show business. We really have some good names. I wanted to hire a guy who I interviewed a few weeks ago simply because the name was so cool. And I'm like, oh yeah, your name fits in beautifully. Sadly, it didn't work out. So our newest engineer, Spidey, has done some work with manual aiming on siege engines. So you should see less hitching and an overall smoother experience while aiming siege weapon engines. So we're hoping it will be as smooth as rich Corinthian leather, but we'll have to see. Number 8, tech, click targeting. Matt landed improvements to click targeting. These improvements make clicking on targets in the distance less difficult and more accurate. Yay for that one. Number 9, another work in progress, another tech item. OIT, order blend materials. Dave is working on a blend shader to reduce the sparkly edges on assets with alpha, such as leaves and fur. Art, siege engines. To improve performance in a new siege scenario, which is super important when you have 200 trebuchets, which is great. Not that I think we're going to have that for any, certainly for any scenario I have in mind right now. But it's also important even for 50. Dion created LODs of the 3 magic mortar models and the Arthurian and TDD Trebs. So, you've heard us talk about this before. This is what all developers talk about. Level of detail, aka lotting, is how you make things, try to look decent in the distance while using fewer polys, fewer triangles, which allows you to have more of them on the screen. And yes, when we have a lot of objects, certainly the lotting can be kind of helpful. Number 11, art, cloaks. John created 3 materials for the current cloak models that are a bit fancier with realm-appropriate designs. So, yay for fancy. And no, you can get them from the game and not a cash shop. Concept art, realm armor designs. Oh my god, it's so rad. This week we focused on new heavy armor designs for the Arthurians and TDD. Our continued focus is to make gear that doesn't look like it's part of a set and more appropriate for mixing and matching for a greater range of looks. Number 13, art, character cleanup and LODs. So John finished fixing all the character textures this week, removing a lot of the tiny wraps that could be seen on close inspection. So Dion is also further reduced the LODs on 2 of the archer armors. There's a lot of archers in the game, or at least in the siege scenario. At the end of the last one I did, I brought in, we were I think there's only about 30 players in the game and a few hundred NPCs. And I said, hey, I'll bring in a few archers. I'll bring in a few NPCs. 5 minutes later, I'd brought in 800. There's a screenshot of that going into today's update, as a matter of fact, so you can see what I'm referring to. It looked really cool, especially since if you look at the shot, you can see the improved armor of the Black Knight. So thanks to Characters 2.0 and all that. Number 14, Siege Scenario Environment. Tyler fixed several small bugs and then began rebuilding the central grass area to basically look a lot more interesting than the rough pass. The idea with this scenario, and this is something we always have to do, any developer has to do, you have to balance out what looks good versus what is performant. And in our case, we've always gone for bringing as many things as possible into a scenario and just seeing how far we can push the engine. So right now, Tyler's totting up the engine totting up the scenario some more, trying to make it look even better while keeping performance high. So that's going to be an ongoing process. Okay, third page. Work in progress. 15, sorry. Work in progress. Art, animation. So Scott's been working on shared attacks for shields, spears, and swords. Oh my! And it actually says that. That's not me making that up. The trebuchet. Scott did a second pass on the trebuchet firing animation, making it just feel a little bit more, realistic. And so, that's looking good. See Scorpion. See Scorpion run. Scorpion is running. Scott fixed the Arthurian Scorpion model, which we discovered was not animating properly during testing. So how it was not animating properly resulted in something really interesting. So we were trying to track down what was going on with a texture bug, where you would see what looked like a piece of something stretched over, your frustrum. And, I think it was Tyler who came over and said, wow, that looks like a piece of the trebuchet. A piece of the Scorpion. So what we ended up doing was I went under the ground, and it appeared that after using a Scorpion, a certain piece of it would fall through the world, and keep going down while spinning. So yeah, it was really cool because we had all these spinning things underneath the earth heading for water, as a matter of fact. And last one was shared longbow set, where Sandra began work on the shared set using the Blackguard's animations as a starting point. So number 16, art, VFX, siege, and work in progress mages. Mike tuned the color of several of the VFX used in the new siege scenario to further differentiate them. He also made several improvements to the new mage VFX and DB added in sounds for the magic mortars. Last and not least, number 17, abilities interface. Art, James finished the art needed for this part of the UI and has begun breaking it up for future integration. So again, another week of lots and lots of progress, lots of testing. Testing is still, as far as I know, ongoing on Hawking. The plan for the next weekend test is as follows. We're going to continue testing for the rest of the day. Then next week we're going to start putting in some of the fixes that we have, though actually we already started, over to Hawking, and if all, actually to Nuada Prep. And if all goes well, we'll be able to take the unstable build to a stable build. If all goes well then with that, then we will have an alpha test next weekend, unless we are able to get everything tested early enough in the week that we feel confident about bringing in beta 1s. But beta 1s, you should only be one more week, though what we will do as well next week is potentially invite you in for some final shakedowns if we think we have a stable build. Right now, because the build, even though it's running pretty well, there's still some stability issues with it, which I'd rather not run over the weekend. So we will be running it all next week. We want to lock down a version to get you folks in for a weekend test. What we also will be doing for you North American folks, we know most of you have not been able to see this test. So I'm going to stay here late one night next week and run a test for you folks. We want to get you folks from our part of the world into these tests, and our daily testing regimes obviously don't allow for most of you to do that. So we will definitely do that next week. That'll also allow people potentially down under and from that part of the world to get into a test as well. So hopefully that will work out. I'm not sure what day yet. I would expect Wednesday at the latest. So expect one evening. We will be running a test here late, so all you North Americans can see, and South Americans, can see what we have been doing. And so with that, let's go to a short Q&A, please.
Alrighty. You want to let me know when we're 5 minutes out?
Of course.
Here we go. Lotaween asks, do you think requiring soul shards to power everything from a Vox to stabilizers and keep shields would encourage more open field RVR if they could only be looted from RVR?
So certainly, anything that requires RVR people essentially to do, which that did, would encourage more RVR. The downside to that is when you have an unbalanced realm. So let's say that we have that soul shard idea, and it's not a terrible idea, not at all. But if we were doing that and you had one realm that was greatly outnumbered, they might not get a lot of soul shards. And, certainly that would encourage them to try to get more. But if there are just not enough people on the server, there aren't enough people on the server. And while we could have some dials for tweaking, as we will for other things, I would rather not, have to resort to that, especially for soul shards. But we'll see. I mean, it's a good question. It's certainly something to think about. And hopefully it won't be a big deal that we would have to use it.
Where to Greece, going off of the mention of guild UI or order UI, would it be possible to create our own emblems for the guilds?
I've been waiting for this question. So, how to say this diplomatically? We've had a headache thanks to GDPR. This week it was announced, for those of you who are European, you know about Article 13. Or it's proposition, I think it's Article 13. Which is the whole, they've dubbed it the anti-meme, bill. Now, they've made some concessions, so that's not a big deal. The problem is, we originally had thought that we were going to allow you folks to upload designs, and we could do a quick vetting on them and use them, allow you to use them. Right now, the answer to do whether I'd allow that or not is no. We can't. Under that act, which still hasn't been signed into law, companies such as ours, even though we're not the target, certainly, if someone uploads something that belongs to someone else, whether it's the exact copy, an exact copy of the logo taken from their site or an approximation of their logo, under that we are responsible. So that is another kettle of pain that we have now, unfortunately, have to deal with, just as we have to deal with GDPR. And so my original plans for guild logos have changed. The uploading is probably not going to happen. And if it did happen, we would charge for it, and not a few pennies. It would take time to research it. We would have to probably even go get insurance just to be sure, to protect us in case somebody did do that and we get fined. The real problem is that, when you look at the number of logos that are out there in the world, there is no way in hell that we can quickly research that. If tools were available, which they supposedly will be, where companies can try to protect themselves using them, maybe we go back to that. I really wanted to give you folks the ability to do that. I really did. It was part of the plan. And so I've been keeping my fingers crossed that the EU would, not pass that. But it looks like, it was approved, and now they say, I think, 2 weeks, although I could be wrong, before the final vote, and the final vote's supposed to be essentially a rubber stamp at this point. And so the answer is no. We're going to have to douse the guild heraldry back. Now, the good news there is we know that that's important to you people, to a lot of you people. So we want to give you tools to create your own emblem in a way to protect us, that will protect us at the same time. This is a terrible thing. It's a terrible change, and a lot of companies in our space, making games, who had allowed people to do it, my guess is won't be allowing gamers to do it anymore because of the risk of lawsuits over it. So we'll see how far it's going to go, but right now I expect a slightly dialed back version, though even the dialed back version could be more powerful than it originally was going to be, because we can't do what I had hoped to do. So sorry about that.
Andrew Green asks, do you think Camelot could end up on any of the new streaming services like Google Stadia?
I mean, in theory. Is it something that we're looking at? We talk to the folks at Google all the time, but that's about, cloud services. So, we've been aware of something like that, not actually from them, which is amazing. They were really closed-mouthed, closed-lip about that. Streaming, and I don't want to go on it would be very easy for me to go on a long explanation of what I think about streaming and how it will impact us. The bottom line is, for the most part, and there are always exceptions, the way our engine works, if you can stream something live, you can play our game unless you just have your PC is too weak. From the back end of things, the small amount of bandwidth we use actually is better, more efficient, and cheaper for players who are playing games, unless you have unlimited bandwidth with unlimited, not unlimited price. But we'll see. Certainly I respect what they're doing, and I wish good luck, them good luck. But streaming is hard. Google has the resources, certainly, to pull it off, but, it's still hard. So we'll see what happens.
Brand asks, how long do you think it would take in a live environment to recreate the 9 million block castle once we have to gather and craft materials?
Good question, Brand. I saw you obviously in the test. So I haven't really thought about this, because 9 million, this is big. This would be not something you could build in a day, obviously. This is something that would be built over the course of weeks. Now, it really depends on a lot of factors: how many people are involved, how much money is being spent, game currency, please, that sort of thing. But you could not build the cherry keep in the matter of hours or even days. This is a big deal, and one of the things that I have talked about and you didn't see it in the demo, in the demo of our siege system, because it's actually no fun to do it this way. The blocks in the real game won't break as easily as they do in this one. This is meant for a scenario. This is meant to stress, absolutely stress, the engine. I think it takes about 4 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes to break a hole in the wall. That is not going to happen. I mean, it's not supposed to happen. Certainly not from any kind of normal siege. If you had 200 trebs going at it, sure, maybe things would happen relatively quickly, but not like this. So, expect sieges in Unchained to be slower than what you're seeing now, and the damage to be way less. So, we want to make it, and I've been very clear about this from the beginning. We don't want, a siege and the loss of something, whether it's a house, whether it's a keep, whether it's a full castle, whether it's, a cherry. We do not want it to be a quit point for players. So we have to balance it out with what we know you folks want to do, on the other side of things. And we will. It won't be easy to build, won't be easy to destroy. We have to find the right balance. And hopefully we will.
It will not surprise you that JB has jumped in the chat with an opinion on cloud game streaming services. That they work quite well. TCG Tyra asks, why is Article 13 relevant? People cannot make money with the upload, can they?
It's a question of, so let's say you uploaded it for your guild. And let's say your guild uses the logo to charge people anything, for admittance, for raising money. That counts potentially as making money off the logo. Now, is this something I think they thought about at all? Of course not. We don't want to be the test case, just as we don't want to be the test case for GDPR. So for now, we're going to be really cautious, just as we were with GDPR.
Bless you, Ben Lunsford, for this question. Question for Mark. Have you run any real-world tests with live fireballs, or are you just going to wing the physics aspects for flame wardens and hope we don't notice?
Yeah, we thought about it. We called up the fire department. We, checked with our insurance agents to see what we could get away with. At the end of the day, we just kind of decided that, we were going to have to fake it till we make it.
Muertegrease asks, do you plan to create doors without the aspect of doors? I mean, for example, you can go out of the keep from a secret door and attack the enemy from an unexpected flank.
Sure, we'd love to have that. Absolutely. So, 5 minutes, guys.
All right, 5 minutes. Looking for those nice ending questions. ILR asks, what do you make of storefront exclusivity on crowdfunded games? Is the issue blown out of proportion?
Okay, another one I'm going to be careful with. So, as a developer, I'm not against exclusives. Again, that's as a developer. If you have a game that can benefit from it, the exposure, potentially money, then as a developer, that's a good thing. As a player, it's not such a good thing necessarily. If you don't want to have a lot of launchers, that you have to deal with. If you'd like to get, you don't want to have a split community. So I'm kind of torn on them. Do I think too much is being made of it? No. And yes, it's the same. So, Tim Sweeney is a really smart guy. Obviously, he's done a brilliant job over his career, not only just as a developer, but now as someone who's, taken the leap into being, a platform provider, an engine maker, a publisher. So, he's a really smart cat. I think that what he's done by setting up setting up the Epic Store is really clever. You know, the way he's handling this so far, also really clever. And if it works out the way he hopes, it's brilliant. So, do I think too much is being made of it? No, but I do understand why people are upset. So I don't want to, I don't want to blame people for being upset about what they see as, again, too many stores out there, or in Epic's case, just as we all remember what Steam was like when it was launched. It not being perfect, I'm willing to give the guy a chance, because the one thing, or two things I could say: one, again, that he's a smart cat, and number two, look, people have been bitching, including him and others, including us, at 30%. It's not that 30% is horrific. Apple charges it, Valve was charging it. But in a lot of cases, the argument was always, well, we're charging 30% because we're giving you, support, and we're giving you exposure, and we're giving you a lot of things. And for a while, that was certainly true with the Apple Store. But as the signal-to-noise ratio increased, it became harder to get any kind of support and to get any real value you would feel from that 30%. So by reducing the price, which Tim has done with Epic, he's brought it down to a point where it feels good. I mean, it feels really good. So I thank him very much for that. So that's my take.
That was, that was a pretty good answer to end with, possibly.
All right, then let's call it, because like I said, I want to get home. Folks, I hope I know some of you were able to get into the test this week. I hope a lot of you will get into the test next week, and then the weekend test. Watching a 9 million block building be destroyed is pretty cool. Seeing all the trebs fire and the magic mortars and the archers into the ground is also pretty cool. And it's even cooler when you look at it from, not just me being the proud, president of the company looking at the tech, but also as a gamer. Because as I'm sitting here and listening to the trebuchets firing over my head, or the magic mortars exploding around me, or walking up on a parapet and having it destroyed under me, that's what I've dreamed of seeing forever. And we're really close to making it come to life for all of you folks. And so I am really excited about that. I hope you are as well. And I really hope you get to join us next week, whether it's for during the week or the weekend test. Because I think for those of you who haven't been in, you're going to be really happy with what you've seen. Literally everyone who has come into the test, other than the occasional, I'm having some lag issues, anyone who's commented has been, almost everyone, there's always one, who has commented has loved what they've seen. And some of the excitement from some of these folks, as Brand can tell you because he was in the test, has been nothing but, heartwarming for me and the team. So with that, as always, I thank you for your support. I thank you for your patience. And I'll see you in a siege next week. Have a good and safe weekend.
See you later.